Alright everyone, so you'll probably have noticed it's been quite a long time since I did an update video like this, and the videos I have been putting out have been few and far between, and you know, as I've told you before, that is simply because I go to university and it's a little bit tricky to film your reptiles when you're on the other side of the country. So with this in mind, what I'm going to be doing today is just doing a full reptile room tour, bringing you up to speed with how all of my animals are doing and telling you about the things that are going to be happening over the next couple of months. So let's get straight into it. So to kick off the reptile room tour, let's have a look at the leopard geckos. So over here, looking really quite smug and now finally paying some attention to me, is Speckles the leopard gecko, who I got in 2017 and is a male leopard gecko. He'll probably come chasing me fingers, even though I only fed him yesterday. Now he shares this vivarium with two female leopard geckos. The one who was just basking and is approaching us now, and will also probably chase me finger, even though I only fed her yesterday, is Pepper. And her little companion, also basking at the back there, is Dottie, who is another female leopard gecko. These lizards I have kept in this vivarium with each other since August last year, and I did sort of a all-encompassing video on why I decided to put them together and why I thought that this could potentially be a better way of keeping them. Now, I don't want to talk about that too much here because it is a very in-depth topic, and I don't want to make it seem like you can just throw leopard geckos together regardless of how you're keeping them, and they will get along. But since I have put them together, they have been doing absolutely fantastic. Now, with that being said, this enclosure is just shy of 3 feet long, a bit off 2 feet front to back, and a little tad off 2 feet tall. And even though I've made full use of the space by building this background, which I showed you how to do in a video quite some time ago, I am actually not happy with the size of this. I don't think it's large enough for the three of them, because even though they get on and they don't really fight with each other, well, at all, since I've had them, I've only seen one little squabble, really. When it comes to feeding time, they all sort of pile up at the front and they're all walking on top of each other, and sometimes when they're grabbing their insects, they just sort of grab each other by accident. Doesn't do them any harm, like they don't leave marks or anything, but I don't really want it to happen, so these guys are going to get an upgrade. In case you're wondering, this is a lay box, so I just keep the soil extra moist in here. Hello, Pepper. And Pepper and Dottie lay their eggs in it, because they have been breeding with Speckles, and hopefully I will have some baby leopard geckos soon. The other thing you might be wondering is, why has the water bowl got no water in it? And that is because I emptied it before the video, because I thought, well, I might as well show you me filling it back up in the video, because these three, their response to me going in the enclosure can often be quite funny. Alright then, lizards. God. You see, these had extra large locusts yesterday, but you wouldn't believe it. Oh, did you see Pepper attacking the door there? Oh, Dottie's come down from basking. Speckles is probably... oh, there's a piece of sphagnum moss in there. Please don't go for me finger, Speckles. Please don't do that. Thank you. Let's tip that out a bit better. Oh, very interesting, isn't it? Filling up a water bowl. So moving on from these three little bits of mischief, we do have a further bit of mischief, which is Red the cornsnake. So Red, who's eyeing us up through this little hole in this piece of cork bark, is doing spectacularly well. You'll see his enclosure since the last reptile room tour is quite a bit different, because I added some further bits of cork bark in here, like the big one he's in right now, which is one of his favourites. Some at the back. I also added those two plants, and I also added a piece up there, which he does actually go and hide in quite often. Red does make full use of this setup. He comes out and basks, he climbs all over the space. It's a really nice functional setup, this. I'm happy with the size of it. It doesn't seem too small for Red. I mean, I know if I gave him a bigger enclosure, he would still use all of the space that I were to give him. But, you know, as far as a manageable size for a setup goes, and one that is good for the reptile, I think this is really good. And also the lighting rig, it's a lot better than what I did have. So we've got the LED being a direct provider of visible light. Then we've got the halogen for the near-infrared, and the UV lamp, of course, for UVB and UVA. Red himself, as ever, is no trouble at all. He eats when I give him food, and then he sits round and waits for more food when I don't give him food. And occasionally he wants out of his enclosure, and he'll come and be wriggling round, and then he'll come and sit at the door, and then he'll come and have a good nose at me, and I'll let him slither about, and he seems to enjoy it. Now, next, bathed in a pool of light, is my western green lizard, who I'll have to zoom in on and change the brightness of this camera so that you can see her a bit better. Now, unfortunately, I do have some pretty dire news with this enclosure, because I mentioned in the last reptile room tour that I had a problem that with the lizards, that they were ailing with something, and in attempting to treat them for what issue they had, the male western green lizard died, basically because I made a really big mistake when I was applying some of the treatment, and he managed to lick it, and within a couple of hours of doing that he died. Now, I don't want to go into full detail of this, because once I've still not gotten rid of the problem fully. It's pretty much gone, but basically I want to make a full video talking about everything that's happened, basically, so that other people don't have to go through the same thing that I have got to go through with these. But anyway, on that macabre note, I will talk a bit more about the female western green lizard here, who is doing just absolutely great. She's waiting for food because I've not fed her in a fortnight. As you can see, she's a little bit podgy, to be honest, but that is because there are so many woodlice living in this setup, and she helps herself to them quite regularly. So even when I don't supply her with crickets or cockroaches or mealworms or anything, she's filling herself up. And so I actually was only feeding her once a week anyway, now that she's full size, finished growing. But it, you know, once a fortnight seems to be enough with the extra supplementary food she gets. But today is a feeding day, so I will feed her and show you the footage of that. Although before we do, I can't resist giving her a little tease, because I know she will come and attack me fingers through the glass, won't you? Yes, you will. I know it's a bit, it's very cruel of me, isn't it? Very nasty, owner. Hey, but you're cute, aren't you? Very cute. moving on from that cheeky chappy, who doesn't have a name yet actually. I think I've got one, but if you've got some name suggestions, then throw them in the comments and maybe that's what we'll call her. But as I say, moving on. Over here we do have the Chinese leopard snakes, or twin spotted rat snakes. I think for the first time ever in a reptile room tour, one of the snakes is out. This is Chloe the female, who you can see looping round here, going underneath one of her lay boxes, and just peeping out there. And if I give her a little finger wiggle, she might come and say hello, because it is it's feeding day for her. Hello there, miss. Now these snakes, Chloe down here and Rusty the male, these are not staying with me for much longer. At the end of July I am going to trade them with a friend for some lizards which I really want, and they are going to go in Char's enclosure, but I'll talk about that in a second. And what is going to be happening is these two enclosures are going to become one enclosure for my leopard geckos. So what I'm going to do is join them up vertically and have like cork and things running through holes. And I'm going to have this bottom layer as a subterranean section for the leopard geckos to sort of go crawling round in. And the upper layer is going to be like the above ground where the leopard geckos are going to bask and everything. The reason for wanting to move these on is that these snakes, although they are exceedingly beautiful in my opinion, and they're really hardy, they honestly don't take that much looking after. They're just not really my favourite thing. They're not like that handleable. They don't seem to enjoy it. They never did. They're quite fast. They are quite food aggressive. So it sort of makes opening the enclosures a chore. And obviously while I'm going to university and I'm away and my parents are having to look after these things, it's like they've said it's not a trouble, but I sort of worry that something might happen in my absence. And another problem, a sort of logistical problem, is that this enclosure down here, because it's above my bearded dragon's enclosure, or which won't be my dragon's enclosure for much longer actually, this one, it just gets so warm, and because it's sandwiched between two, it just gets unfeasibly hot on a warm day, and it's not really suitable for keeping things in with like their own lighting and all that. So if I get rid of all that and just have this as like a subterranean thing with some small LEDs just so you can see in, then this will be a really good upgrade for the leopard geckos. If you compare, these are a full 3 feet long, a full 2 feet front to back, and over 2 feet tall together, whereas this, as I said earlier, isn't quite 3 by 2 by 2 feet. Like in every dimension it's slightly smaller than that. So that'll be a really good upgrade for the leopard geckos. And also, when I am not here, what I plan on doing is keeping this setup available to put Speckles the leopard gecko in, so that whilst I'm away at university, the females are in here and the male is in here, and consequently I'm not worried about like overbreeding or anything whilst I am away. So everything should work out better. But anyway, moving on from the Chinese leopard snakes, let us take a look at my bearded dragon Char. Now, as I say, I am not going to be keeping Char in this enclosure for very much longer because I've decided to get rid of him. I don't want him anymore. He's completely boring, just not interested in this species, don't want to work with him. So that is the end of that. Let's move on.
Got ya.
What is actually going to be happening with this little fella, or big fella I should say, he's reasonably sizable, is I'm moving him to a bigger enclosure, because this one, which is 5 feet long, 2 feet front to back and 2 feet tall, is not big enough for him. It just isn't. There's not enough space for him to run round. The ventilation in it's crap. I've got fans on it, but it's just not sufficient. So what I really want to do is I want to get him out of here. You know, this time of the year when it's warm, just having all of the lighting and that, even though the lighting is proper, it's just too warm so that he doesn't want to bask and he just sits down here, and you know that is not a good thing. So what I've done is I have converted the cabinets below Char's enclosure and also below Red's enclosure, and I suppose below all of the enclosures, is I've taken the doors out of 3 sections, removed the base that was in here, put it up as a back, even though the lighting is horrendous. I've put it up as a back, painted it. I've put sides on it with holes cut out, which are going to have massive vents. And this is going to become Char's new abode. Originally, I did want to make the whole thing Char's new enclosure, but I sort of decided, actually, I do need some space for storage, so this end section here is going to be kept for that purpose. But that does leave Char with a 7.5 foot enclosure. So from this side to that side, it's 7.5 feet. Front to back, it's a little bit less than 3 feet, and it is 2 feet tall, which puts it at about 300 US gallons. You might have noticed that alongside all of my feeding utensils, which I need to clean from having fed the lizards yesterday, is a big pile of foam, because I'm going to be carving it to make some rock inserts for this enclosure, and I'm going to start doing that this afternoon. So after I finish making this reptile room tour, I'll have some lunch or something, and then I'm going to crack on with making this enclosure something really nice for this fella. What are you looking at? I'm talking about Char right now. You've had your bit on the video. So once Char is out of this enclosure, which I hope I'll have his new one done in a couple of weeks, and I can move him into it. Char's old enclosure I'm going to revamp, because honestly I think this is letting the side down. Out of all the enclosures in here, Char's doesn't look that good. So I'm going to be taking it apart, and I will reset it up all nice. And in here I am going to be getting some new lizards, some ones that I've wanted for a long time. They're some of my favourite lizards, and I'm going to be trading the Chinese leopard snakes with somebody who has these lizards. So we're going to be doing a swap, and that should work out really quite well. So basically guys, what I'm doing is I'm going to be focusing on the species that I really want to keep, because I don't have space or time or funds to just keep growing a massive reptile collection. So I really want to focus in on those species that I really want to keep, and those that I've got, I want to make sure they have the best lives possible, which, you know, is why these snakes, which aren't my favourite thing, I'm going to be moving on, and then their enclosures are going to become a single big enclosure for me leopard geckos. Then I'm going to keep the old leopard gecko enclosure, just for like making it safer while I'm cohabbing, just so that I've got the option to separating and they don't have to be together while I'm away at university. It's just a nicer solution. And then Char, he is getting his larger enclosure, and then in here are going to be going some lizards that I really want to work with. So basically it's just refining what I've got and making things better for what I already have. Okay, so moving on with the reptile room tour, we have this small glass enclosure here, which currently houses my 3 dart frogs, Dendrobates tinctorius robertus, and also some baby line day geckos. Now, long-time viewers of the channel will recognise immediately that this enclosure is looking absolutely awful. At one point it did look really nice, it was my nicest looking enclosure, but with being away for quite a lot of the time and not being able to prune it and fertilise it and everything, it has just sort of gone rubbish. And also with having baby day geckos in it, it is really quite difficult to get in and trim because I don't want to upset the little things. And when they were smaller than they are now, I was really quite scared of cutting out a bit of plant and taking a gecko out with it. Now there are 3 larger line day gecko young in here, and one that is a little bit smaller. And as I say, there are the dart frogs. One of the dart frogs is just down there. Now, what's going to be happening with this enclosure is the dart frogs are intended to go in the adult line day gecko enclosure, and the babies I will be selling. So if you've got any interest in any of the babies, then do let me know, because 3 of the 4, the 3 bigger ones, I am happy to move on now. They can go to new homes and that'll be them sorted. But once the baby day geckos have gone, and once I've moved the dart frogs into their new enclosure, I'm going to completely strip lots of the plants back, take it right back down to the cork bark, and then set this up again, and it should look quite nice after that. Now, I've got quite a similar tale to tell with my Crested Gecko Splat, because his enclosure has definitely seen better days as well. Again, while I've been away, I've obviously not been able to trim the plants and whatever, so it does look a bit overgrown and not as nice as it once did. And like this enclosure, this one will be emptied because I am moving Splat on. He's got a new home with Michelle from the Reptile Room, whose Instagram account I will put the tag to on screen so that you can go and have a look if you like. But Splat's new enclosure with her is going to be bigger than the one he's in, so it's going to be an upgrade for him. But basically the reason that I'm moving him on is just that this is basically all I see of him, which is to say I don't see him because he only really comes out of a night and I'm never up when he's around, so it's just sort of time and effort to look after him, but then I don't ever see him. But anyway, once he's moved on, this enclosure is just going to become another grow out tank for baby day geckos and also baby dart frogs once those eventually come along, because honestly this 45cm by 45cm by 60cm enclosure isn't really big enough for keeping anything in long term, apart from like a crested gecko. You know, the species that I might like to keep, sort of tropical diurnal ones, would need bigger enclosures than this. Same for this enclosure. So basically these are just going to become my grow out tanks. So the final enclosure that I've got is this 90cm long, 45cm front to back and 90cm tall enclosure for my line day gecko trio. Well, actually I've got 4 of them because I have the male and 2 females and also a baby living in here, which was the first reptile I ever bred, and so I decided to hold that one back. We're probably not going to get to see them live because these fellas are quite shy, because I was doing lots and lots of lighting changes with them a long time ago, and keeping doing that they sort of lost faith in me. But with that being said, they are getting much better, and now they will actually take food from the tongs, which I wasn't sure that they would ever do again, so that is quite nice. Now, looking around this enclosure, since last time it has grown an absolute ton. You'll see that this dragon tree or Drakena is pushing against the top there, getting at the lighting. You'll see I've got a spot LED, a metal halide, a tungsten halogen lamp. I've got a jungle dawn LED bar, and I've also got a T5 linear fluorescent UV lamp, which is just behind the LED there. And this suits the geckos perfectly. They're doing absolutely fantastically. Even the females are getting really beautiful colours now. So there's one of the females, the dominant female named Orchid. She's even developing a blue tail, which I thought was only a feature of males. So there you go. It just shows you what proper lighting can do. The plants obviously are doing superb. If we have a look at this begonia it has really grown in, and it's even got some lovely white and yellow flowers on it, which are quite good. The Hyper Westies down here I started again with, because it had grown that big that it was literally right up here, and it was right up at the front of the glass. So I cut that right back, and I've started again with cuttings. I've got this Spathiphyllum here, which I've put in not long ago. It's a little bit yellow because it was struggling to root, but it's getting there now. We've got these Neregelia, Nazi Regalia, I don't know how you call them. These bromeliads, and they're all lovely and pink. We've got ferns growing out the background. I've got a little baby orchid, which was growing as sort of, it's not actually called a pup, which is what you would call it in bromeliads. I think it's called a keiki or a keiki, I'm not sure how you say it. And that came off this orchid plant, which has actually got the whole back baby day gecko sat in it looking at me, which I never even noticed. So there you go. Anyway guys, I hope very much that you have enjoyed this video. I know it's probably been a little bit slapdash, but I've not made a sort of updatey video like this in quite a long time, so I thought that it was really quite overdue, just to get this all back up to speed with everything, so you know what's been happening and what is going to be happening. Anyway, over the next couple of months I have got all these projects to be getting on with, new enclosures, moving animals around and so on, and that is going to be sort of a lot of the focus of my videos, but also I do have lots of the reptile lighting and heating stuff, which I have promised that I will be talking about, and I will be getting on to making the videos about that shortly. Anyway, for now, this is the end of the video, so I really do hope that you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please subscribe, because for today, I've been JTB Reptiles, teaching you how to follow nature's example, and I'll see all of you in the next video. Bye guys!